there, doggy.
Benny has recruited 2 mates to help him complete the task of taking the Cresta to Dragweek.
Smoking and electronic cigarettes not allowed anywhere in this aircraft, including the lounge.
The trip for the boys covers over 16,000 k's from one hemisphere to the other. The Cresta is well travelled too, going even further, making its way from Port Botany in Sydney to Melbourne, Auckland and then through the Panama Canal to the east coast of the USA. And after clearing customs was delivered to Charleston Performance Solutions.
We've finally made it here to Charleston. I started in Sydney, then flown to Brisbane to meet Alan Woody. Woody was stuck in the middle of the seats, a bit squishy. I wasn't too bad, Al was pretty happy. Flew all the way to LA. The LA flight was pretty good. Met a couple of awesome people who were also coming to Dragweek. From LA we flew to Atlanta, which we then stayed overnight.
Shotgun the big bed.
Lol.
No, that's not happening.
Jumped in a hire car first thing, hit the road, and about an hour down the road we got stuck in some epic traffic. It was a box truck on fire. Unfortunately, we were only about 20 cars back from where they stopped the traffic.
The Springfield tyre fire has flared up.
After about an hour and a half, 2 hours of waiting, we ended up looping it back. Went to Denny's, got a bit of a feed, stayed there for about an hour. It was nice aircon, so we pretty much chilled, had a good burger, hit the road again, ended up getting into Charleston last night. Went and had lunch, had dinner, which was horrible, nearly killed Alan. And now we're here at Charleston Performance where we found the Cresta, found our spare barra, and we found our boxes of spares. So we're going to have a bit of a working beat today to get the car up to scratch. We haven't seen the car for a couple of months. It actually spent 38 days at sea, so the shipping is actually quite long from Australia to the US. We're actually now on the east coast as well. It has to go basically the long way via Panama Canal. So yeah, 38 days on the water and then 7 days either side of that for customs and paperwork stuff. Unfortunately, some of the other Dragweek guys haven't been quite as lucky and their cars are still in customs. At the moment, it's 5 days till the start of Dragweek, so fingers crossed for those guys, they do get their cars out. There are also other Australian teams. We've been in semi-constant contact for the last couple of weeks, updating each other on how we're all travelling. As far as I'm aware, there's 3 cars currently in customs from Australian teams, so fingers crossed for those guys that they get out. There's not really a contingency plan, because if you don't have a car, you cannot race. Like, there's no... We've shipped our cars halfway around the world to race our own cars in America, not borrow cars. So yeah, really feeling for those guys right now. It's pretty scary stuff. And it was one thing I was thinking about as well, was there is no plan B. It's if you don't have your car, you may as well go home. So it's pretty scary thoughts for those guys, but fingers crossed it all comes good. We're down here today at Charleston Performance Solutions. We had a bit of a look around late last night. There's some pretty cool cars even just from looking from the fence in. This morning the guys are kind enough to let us in. It's actually Labor Day in the States, so it's actually a public holiday. They've come in this morning on their own time to let us use the shop and give us a pretty awesome tour. There's such cool stuff here to look at. Anything from 60s Mustangs to Jap cars. There's 350s, there's 240s, which is an S13 for those of you playing at home. Even right now I'm looking at 2 Camaros and like from plastic bar Camaros all the way to mid-60s Camaros and everything in between. Corvettes on the hoist, but then there's a 40 series Cruiser, all-wheel drive swapped Honda Civic. There's just a really good diverse car culture here, and these guys seem to be into everything, and it kind of shows here. So it's really good to be partnered with these guys. These guys are going above and beyond to help us out. They arrange the transport of the car here. They're hooking us up with parts shops. They're hooking us up with trailer guys. We got parts shipped here from other businesses. So they just helped us out so much, and we're so grateful for their participation in our project. So thanks to Charleston Performance Solutions. Today with the Cresta, we're just going to give it a good once over. So we'll chuck it up on the hoist, give it a good look over from under the car. We don't know actually how it was packed in the container, so I want to check things like suspension arms, suspension rose joints, all the fasteners under the car. As long as that's all good, we're just going to change the engine oil, change the spark plugs. Hopefully we'll throw it on the dyno, the Savo, and make 1400 American horsepower, because Mustang dyno. Dragweek's not about cruising on interstates, it's all about the backcountry and little faraway towns. So there's obviously not going to be an E85 pump out there, so we've got to prepare for that. We've got 5 jerry cans. We went to Home Depot last night, got some jerry cans, got a 1+ charger so we can charge batteries on the road, as well as a few other little bits and pieces. Went and bought a tow ball because there's different tow ball sizes in the US. We've got to go and pick up our U-Haul tomorrow. So there's all these little things we've got to do just to get it 100%. And it's at this stage we're on track, so we're all pretty happy with the progress so far. The current crew here in Charleston is myself, Woody behind the camera, who's also going to spin spanners with us, and Al Turbo Yoda. When we get to Atlanta, my dad's actually going to come and join us as well, so that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, Az Dunning-Kruger Motorsports done a gut, so 4 days out he pulled out, so Dad subbed in at the last second. We were really keen for Az to come on board. He's such a mad dude.
Az only speaks a bit of English, so don't ask him too many questions.
What the hell?
What?
Schlaft gut.
Unfortunately, he ended up having surgery, so that put him out for the trip. But yeah, I'm also super rapt to have my dad on board, so get to hang out with him and have a cool experience, so it's going to be pretty cool. That's enough cool stories, bro. Let's get into it.
The guys are going to use only the tools and supplies they brought with them as a dry run for when they're on the road. The Cresta will get a basic service and check over to make sure it's ready to complete both drag runs and over 2,000 kilometres of driving.
These guys are my people. They've got the Saturn Sky that used to have a 4-cylinder engine in it with a LS something. And above it we've got the Z06 Corvette with the twin precision turbos tucked down underneath the bank. Really nice fab work. The guy up the road does the fab for him. Cool stuff.
And the gearbox is in the back.
The transmission is indeed in the back with a torque tube. That's pretty much how Corvettes rolled for many a year. Quite an interesting engineering exercise. So GM doesn't just make normal vehicles, they make cool stuff as well.
We spotted some ladies over there in the corner.
Yeah, there's a bit of a broken Modi collection over there, so none that we can take out into the bush. There's some nice bush around here. I would have liked to have got out in there and had a go. Seen how many fingers I had. Still pulls the clutch in, it's fine.
Done an oil change on the car, given it a quick check over, done a spanner check and found one nut was loose just on the rear control arm. We nipped that up and the rest of it all looks really good. There's no transit damage or any issues like that. Quite a lot's changed on the car since you guys have last seen it on camera. Anyone following my Instagram has probably seen a lot more of it. We've changed the engine, so we've now got a 4-litre forged engine from Empire Motorsports and Mechanical. Hypertune have changed all the intercooler piping for us, just changed the layout. We've also added their billet clamps, so it no longer relies on silicone to seal. We did actually have an issue where we burnt one of the clamps and the silicons at summer nuts, so we've extended and changed that. Dave's done a lot of wiring work on the car. We've relocated the ECU. The Haltech did report a thermal issue, so we've relocated that to the glove box to give it a lot more of an air gap off the firewall. The current climate here in South Carolina is very similar to when we had that thermal issue, so probably paid off. It's just a reliability thing. I don't think it was a fault. We've also changed the cosmetics of the car, so there's now the black bottom half of the car, black wheels. The front wheels are now 17s instead of 15s. That's really the main changes. There's probably other little bits and pieces I've forgotten, but that's where we're at really on the car.
What's this, Benny? What's going on?
We're currently making a charging system for both our jumper pack and our Ryobi 1 Plus batteries. So in the States you can actually get a 12 to 18 volt like cigarette style charger, but we're going to put it in the boot with our jumper pack all in one circuit, so it's just on one connector. We can quick release and just pull that all out and then just clip it back in. And then the other thing is we can use that to isolate it so that it doesn't charge the batteries and drain the main car battery while the car's off, not running. So we can just pull all of it out and it'll just do its thing.
After a successful service, the Cresta goes for its first test run on American roads. You are legally allowed to drive a car registered in Australia on USA roads with the right paperwork and permits. In some states, you don't need a front number plate, which is handy on a drag car as it gets extra airflow into the front of it. The weather is predicted to be hot as it's the height of summer with crazy high humidity, so keeping the fuel cool might also be an issue the boys will have to solve on the road.
Benny said that the 4-inch exhaust doesn't drone.
Benny was wrong. It'll be fine. You just have to get it up to like 5,000 RPM and it's sweet.
And a swarm of bees in the boot. They're pretty loud, hey?
It's hot.
Fuel tank's hot or it's hot as in temperature today?
The fuel tank's hot, and both.
The Cresta has a flex fuel sensor, meaning it can be run on both normal unleaded and ethanol fuel. The ethanol content can vary wildly between states and various service stations, which does affect the total power available. Temperature, humidity and fuel quality all affect the performance of the car, and it's part of what makes Dragweek a test of endurance. Next episode, the boys get on the road, but uncover some issues they'll need to solve before Benny can do his very first drag race.